yeah, sometimes that happens. But
Go ahead.
But the thing is that what struck me about this is that while it was possible to short Bitcoin via some of the exchanges, it has been difficult to short. And financial theory says if something is not shortable, then it can be taken over by enthusiasts. And the doubters no longer have an adequate way of betting against it. So we've just seen both the SIBO and the CME have both created futures markets for Bitcoin. And that might make it more stable. Now, in fact, when people ask me, should I invest in Bitcoin, I have a follow-up question. Long or short, what are you thinking of? And I can't really know with certainty which is the right one.
Long or short at this moment?
Hold. I would say long, but not more than you can afford to lose completely, because it's an experiment, and we want the experiment to succeed. But one sure way of making it fail is if too many people lose their life savings, then it will go to zero because they'll sell the rest.
Yeah, and also hold for your.
Hold,
yeah,
but at the same time also think, let's be honest, right? Right now there are about more than 1,000 cryptocurrencies available in the market right now. I would say 1995, perhaps even a higher number of those cryptocurrencies would not be around in 3 years' time, because a lot of those companies took this window of opportunities, issued their token with a very simple business idea and put into a white paper. So essentially, they are using seed stage, VC, angel stage business proposal to seek IPO level of fundraising. And I think that's not going to end well. And another thing is I have to give some feedback to media. I think media right now...
Very briefly, please.
I think media right now overly focus on the pricing and not paying...
Actually, we are not. You mentioned the central bank digital currency. We have just published an article from the deputy governor of the PBOC, and he declared that the forward thinking of the CBDC plan in China by the PBOC. And you talk about the blockchain technology.
Right.
But according to the plan from the PBOC, they said that maybe we are not going to use the blockchain as the as the technology for the CBDC in their plan. So, Governor, you also have an e-corona plan. So, what kind of technology are you going to utilize?
I'll talk a little bit about that. So, it has a different, completely starting point, the research project we run at the Riksbank. And the starting point we have is that technologically and legally, it become very easy in Sweden to live completely cashless. And there's no legal obligation for banks or for shops to take notes and coins. And it's very easy to use cards and instant payment apps. So we see a rapid decrease in the value of circulation in notes and coins. And as a central bank, we are sort of neutral about this. We think that people should be able to use the payment methods that they find safe and efficient, as long as they're safe and efficient. However, going from a non-cash society into a potential non-cash society, where notes and coins are no longer useful as a store of value, well, it can still be a store of value, but not as a medium of exchange, is a new society. And it opens up a number of intricate questions, such as, can we still say as a central bank that we provide a safe and efficient payment system? Is it accessible for everybody? Because in reality, it means that everybody has to be a part of the commercial banking system. And not everybody wants to be a part of the commercial banking system or are not even allowed into it. So that is the starting point. We have to look at the consequences of a cashless society. Is it still safe and efficient if we go in there? And if we find that there is a need for a public sector digital version, we are looking into what sort of features that would have. And that is what we call potentially an e-krona. And it's far away into the future. It's not something that we are doing near. And no, we don't know if we're going to use blockchain or any other technology. But it would work as a one-to-one exchange rate versus the krona that we have, which is the national currency, and it would potentially work as a complement to the notes and coins that we provide, so that people also in the future will be able to choose whether they want to have a claim on the commercial bank, having the deposits there, or if they want to have a claim on the central bank. They can have it now with the notes, but then potentially they can also have it in the future.
Governor, very quickly, do you think the CBDC in Sweden will be M1, M2, or M0? I'm sorry, too academic.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So that would be a digital version of cash. So the answer is it would be M0.
Zero.
The nearest version of money.
And also, do you think it should be retailing or wholesaling? Means, shall we need banking sector or we don't need them anymore?
So the reason for why we're starting this project was that we see that individuals are stop using cash, or the banks and shops stop accepting and offer cash services. So we, if there is a need, it would be offered to individuals primarily.
I see. Then will it be anonymous or not?
So that is one of the questions that where the staff is looking into. My personal view is that it's perhaps not the core business of the public sector to facilitate illegal transactions. So at the end of the day, it would probably be necessary for be able to look into transactions in an e-krona for criminal investigation reasons. But it's a political issue, and we leave that to the legislators to look into potentially.
When will we see the CBDC in Sweden?
I don't know. It's a long way to go, I think. Okay. But we have to do the homework, since cash is going out of fashion very quickly.
Right. Jennifer, your view on the CBDC?
I think, it's in fact, I don't think, completely outside of central bank system, a very efficient payment system will really exist, because I don't think any country, any Soviet country, any central bank will allow there's another alternative currency completely outside of central bank's oversight. However, I do think that we haven't mentioned the term token economy, right? We focus on, if cryptocurrencies is going to replace money or not, but or if it's a store of value or not. However, I think if you look a little bit beyond of the manic happening in the cryptocurrency.
You mean the technology?
I think the technology now create this kind of very effective, very efficient micro-incentive system that will potentially disrupt venture capital. We are in fact disrupting ourselves, and potentially will disrupt the IPO market, right? And I think financial market, I have been invested in fintech for a number of years, and over the years I have seen many companies that always building on the same system, just incrementally make it a little bit more efficient, a little bit more transparent. But with blockchain, the underlying technology is
By the way, let me ask you a very specific question. Do you think the blockchain technology can replace the RTGS system in the banking sector we are using today for the payment system?
I think the scalability is not there yet. Okay. But over time, give it time, right? This is infancy stage.
How long?
It's hard to say. That the acceleration is happening very fast. So I think the breakthrough could happen anytime.
Neil, please.
Yeah, no, so a couple of things to comment on. I mean, the first is, tokens and their use in delivering other functions than just transactions or store of value, which is the primary function of the Bitcoin blockchain. I do think that's interesting. And so if you think of notaries or, or title insurance, things that require some sort of a stamp and a lot of bureaucracy, it's possible to, it's quite conceivable to think of a blockchain with a token that's used to verify those transactions and to store them forever in an inviolable way. But that's still, I think it's a bit easy to sort of say that the blockchain will generate lots of things, and we're not so sure about Bitcoin. The truth is, you need one with the other, because you need this way of giving people incentives to do all the work to verify this distributed database. I mean, 2 people running 2 computers is not as trustworthy as thousands of people doing this, right? So I think you can't sort of buy into it, but not completely buy into it. You do have to buy into the idea that these things will be valuable. Now, what does that do to venture capital and, and our business of investing in the equity of startups and helping them grow their business? I think that, as it's been pointed out, there's a lot of volatility and there's a gold rush, and lots of people just think, why wouldn't I buy Bitcoin? It only goes one way. And that clearly cannot last, and that will not last. And so that's attracted lots of people into the market, and lots of, I think, unethical offerings of tokens, and those things will hopefully be regulated out of business or just shut down. But that doesn't. But just so on the other hand, I don't think that every business can fund itself by monetizing some unit of exchange in their future business by selling tokens and not by selling equity. If you think of something like Kickstarter, I think of Kickstarter as kind of a proto ICO, in the sense that, Kickstarter, the site where you can show some product and sell it. You make a nice video that describes the product, hopefully something that you will actually make. Yeah. And people will give you orders, actually give you the money, buy it beforehand, and you're funding your business without selling equity. Yeah.
So before we open the floor, let me ask Neil and Jennifer very quickly one question about ICO. Why China government shut down all the Bitcoin exchanges and all the ICO? Because according to one survey in China, 90% of the ICO scheme is a cheating scheme and cheating case. So that's the reason why the China government moves very quickly to stop everything. But how is the situation in the other places, in your view? ICOs?
I don't think China has a monopoly on that. I think there are a lot of people who are taking advantage of this gold rush, and the fact that and the people are not doing their homework and just buying things without asking themselves what's going on. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the whole thing will come crashing down.
Jennifer?
I think, first of all, you don't need ICO to tokenize. Tokenization doesn't really require ICO. ICO is a marketing process, right? Secondly, I think there's a ripple effect in terms of central bank's action and the regulators' action, because in the past probably 7-8 months, I have spoken to governments from Oman to Switzerland. Last week, I just met Switzerland's federal council, who's in charge of economy, and after the meeting with a group of us, he actually announced that he wants to make Switzerland a crypto nation. Yeah. In Asia, Cambodia, Bangladesh, etc., a lot of smaller economy now, they started to think, if we just make our regulation a little bit more crypto-friendly, perhaps we can attract a lot of capital and a lot of talent. And either you like it or not, I think we are really at the cusp of something quite extraordinary happening in terms of monetary reset. In the history, every time there was a big disruptive technology taking over, what followed with that is always a monetary reset, from railway to internet. But now with the information technology, we've already at the end of probably 25 years. Yeah. If you think about how seamless everything else using technology, and then you think about our financial system, there is a mismatch. So who's there to say things not going to be completely different, right? Yeah. And I think, in the 90s, when people, talking with early investors going to internet, they always say, oh, intranet will probably, take off, but internet, you can't imagine people.
Sometimes we need bubbles to nurture the new technology.
Absolutely.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, it strikes me that what bothers me about Bitcoin is that the enthusiasm I see is like a speculative bubble. It's about somebody made a lot of money, and I wish I could get in on that too. And it looks selfish to me. There are other financial innovations that are exciting that I don't hear all. To me, they're exciting. For example, the benefit corporation is an idea that's spreading. It's a kind of corporation which is halfway between for-profit and non-profit. Mm-hmm. It's a for-profit corporation that has in its charter a public purpose. So here we're living in a world where we're getting rising inequality, we're getting nationalist separation of, and Bitcoin seems to fit in too much with that. I wish people were less enthusiastic about making money.
It's not about making money.
Actually,
well, I know it's not.
I think
you
must have consensus that technology should do the good for the whole human being. I think that it's too philosophical, so it's time for us to open the floor for questions. We collect all the questions. We collect all the questions, and we will ask panelists to answer them together. Please, the gentleman, please identify who you are, and please be very brief.
My name is George Basheshvili. I'm a private equity fund manager and crypto investor as well. So my question is to Ms. Skinsley. So, for example, you issue a crypto krone, right? And it will mean that people will be able to keep these krones at their own wallets. So the need for custodianship, like what the banks are doing, will diminish. It means that a lot of cash will go out of the banking system, which they will not be able to use. So what macro effect do you think it will have on the whole banking system, and how will it change it?
Yeah, very good questions. And please, please, we collect all the questions.
Thank you. Great discussion. I'm a journalist, but I'm asking as an interested individual. You said crypto nation. I like that. If you could start again from scratch tomorrow with a failed state or some country X, would you make it a crypto nation?
Good question.
Do you, which panelists do you want them to respond to you? Okay, all of them. Great. Yeah, we collect all the questions, please. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, Winston Ma from CIC, China Investment Corporation. And a question to Professor. Since Professor, you gave CIC a speech, right, a few months ago. And it was focus was more on behavior finance. I was very curious. You haven't touched on it. Maybe take the chance from your behavior finance perspective to comment on this.
Because of limited time, please be brief. Please. Yeah, please. Thank you, please.
Hi, I'm a journalist from Holland. One issue that has not been discussed is Bitcoin's energy use, which seems to be hanging over the whole crypto world as a dark cloud, rising up to levels of maybe entire countries. I'm especially interested in the Bitcoin fans' perspective on that.
Yeah, Li Wei.
Li Wei from Caixin. I want to build on Professor Schiller's point to challenge.
You have no time to build.
Yeah.
You only have time to ask questions.
So for yourself, if Bitcoin enthusiasts do this, view this as an asset, it's okay. But if, given nowadays inequality, the need to do money laundering, and people's distrust of the government, everyone will just pile in. Say China crack this down, these people will go to South Korea or Japan. And then when there is an eventual, if central bank do not act, there is an eventual crack kind of fall. And then all the people, Korean, have go on the street to protest. So I'm just wondering, this is not a steady state. Central bank have to go in before kind of this become a systematic risk.
You mean the CBDC or the regulation?
Regulation, but CBDC can help.
Do you have questions? A comment, good, very good, thank you.
So just challenge the view of the...
Okay, and Ali?
Thank you. With Ita Media Group, my question for Ms. Governor is that, do you think it is possible or necessary or feasible for us to do some global coordination in terms of regulating Bitcoin or all the crypto asset? I'm very sure. Another question is that, do you think a next financial crisis may be caused by crypto asset, because a lot of investment bank like Goldman Sachs are now testing waters to provide brokerage service in terms of Bitcoin futures? Thank you.
Very good questions. And I see there's a hands from the gentleman. Yeah, oh, the lady, please.
Thank you. My name is Jennifer from ScanTrust. This question is actually for Neil. We talked a lot about Bitcoin, but we didn't get a chance to talk about other cryptocurrencies. And as you know, a lot of startups are now raising money, and it's disrupting your venture capital model. So I'm curious to hear whether or not you're going to start investing into the ICOs. How do you feel about that? And what is your strategy going forward?
Yeah, the lady here, please. Yeah, you.
Hi, I'm a crypto newbie, but one of the things my understanding is that the technology protocol behind Bitcoin isn't particularly scalable. And so if the underlying protocol isn't scalable, how do you expect it to sort of do something like become gold or, you know, replace the reserve currency?
Yeah, very good question. And the final one, yeah, final two from the gentleman there.
Hi, I'm from Geneva, Al-Kazan. I was just wondering, the Bitcoin is based on what value? How is it just the demand that makes the price of the Bitcoin? What is the value? How do you scale the value of the Bitcoin?
Okay, thank you. The final one.
Jeremy Warner, another journalist. It's not part of the problem with Bitcoin as a currency that it can't expand beyond a certain point, and therefore it can't really accommodate economic growth properly, and a bit like when currencies were linked to the gold standard, it would then become deflation.
I think we have solved that problem. You arrived late, I guess. Anyway, I think we have 8 or 9 questions. So every one of you can pick the questions you like and comment on that. Maybe Neil from you.
Okay, so I'll comment first on the crypto nation. If you're a failed state, what have you got to lose? You know, I don't see why you could actually do. So I don't think you'd print paper currency. You might do a central bank controlled digital currency, or you could do something that was distributed in terms of control, and you might attract a lot of business and citizens. So I would definitely try that. The other comment, the other one I wanted to comment on was the question about whether this disrupts the venture capital model. I don't think it does as dramatically as you might think. I think that there are still, and I think there will be for quite a while, entrepreneurs who want to sell equity and work with somebody who's aligned with them in the same security to build a company and to share the gain. That doesn't mean that company might not at some point issue tokens, but it doesn't mean that they'll use them as their primary way of raising capital. On the other hand, there are some ICOs that we think could make sense, and we are looking at those carefully. And
also technology, the scalability issue?
Yeah. So, I mean, that kind of reminds me of what people used to say about the internet and about the early days of Ethernet or TCP/IP, that it will never scale.
But shall we wait decades?
Other things. I think we'll get there. I think that these things, you know, entrepreneurs are very resourceful, engineers are very resourceful, and it will scale, or we will come up with versions of it that will scale better. But you're right, it's not particularly fast, it's not particularly cheap, and it consumes a lot of energy.
Yeah. Jennifer?
I'll try to use one sentence to answer every question. Crypto Nation, definitely, because of trust leap. We didn't used to trust a paper note, but now we trust paper note. Now a lot of next generation are digital native, so why would you still go back to build paper money? In terms of energy use, I totally agree. I think Bitcoin is not efficient at all, but again, depends on what you benchmark against, right? If Bitcoin is disrupting gold compared to gold mining and gold security, and money spent on gold security and transportation, Bitcoin is not that bad. In terms of money laundering, let me answer this question with a question. Before Bitcoin, what did we use for money laundering? So Bitcoin is just a tool. It's not the reason there's money laundering. In terms of global coordination of regulation, I'll leave to the governor to have final say. But I think from my own experience, I think each government, each central bank has its own priority. It will be very hard to achieve a global coordination. I agree. In terms of scalability versus being a very effective store of value, scalability is measured by number of transactions per minute. So if you use Bitcoin as payment, the number of transactions per minute matters, right? If you look at Visa, Master. But if you use that store of value, you're not going to trading all the time. So because it's disrupting gold and
so it's not currency.
It's not currency. In terms of Bitcoin, the value, I think a lot of people argue that there's no underlying value. But if Bitcoin can replace even 5% or 10% as a store of value compared to the global gold reserve, you can do the math that Bitcoin right now is still very undervalued.
So it's just from a belief. The value is from
same
people's
as
belief.
gold. You know, gold
Right.
price is based
But
on
gold
how
has
we
value.
consensusly.
Yeah, Professor, you have more.
Yeah, someone asked for a behavioral finance perspective. So I come back to the idea that Bitcoin is an interesting idea, but it's way overrepresented in our attention because it's like a speculative bubble, that it involves contagious stories about people making a lot of money. And that you don't like this, but let me go on.
It's not about money.
There are other innovations, there are other things to think about.
I will arrange another event for you to debate for the whole day on that. Yeah. But before that, Professor, would you like to answer the question from the, will Bitcoin nurture next financial crisis?
Well, that's the thing about central banks have been perfecting their art for how many years in Sweden?
350 in the Swedish case, but most other 150.
And I congratulate you. they now think that they have a target inflation rate, and they're pretty much hitting the target. Bitcoin, you said, will be deflationary, maybe massively deflationary. I don't have a good feeling about what that will mean for the economy. It seems like it'll be very disruptive to the economy, and we've got a good thing going with you people.
We do our best. Over to me then. And the question from the lady, regulating globally or nationally, I think it's mainly taken care of. It is taken care of on a national basis through investment protector legislation, anti-money laundering protection, etc. Globally, it remains to be seen whether it's going to be regulated or not. Is it a source of new financial crisis? This is, I may have to regret this for the rest of my life, but I think no. I don't think this, as we can see it now, to be a source of the next financial crisis, because the sizes and the level of leverage is probably, and it's not within the banking system as we can see it. That probability is pretty low. The consequences from a macroeconomic perspective of keeping central bank digital currency in the wallet next to your notes and coins, next to your debit card where you keep your commercial bank money, it's a very difficult question. There are different research going into different directions. They open up a variety of tricky issues. Let me just finalize by saying that safe and efficient versions of money that are being offered in ways that society needs in order to facilitate transactions in a safe and efficient way, that is very beneficial for the economy. I'll stop there.
Yeah, thank you, Governor. I think we have run out of time, but still I would like to take the privilege of the moderator to ask you very quickly two final questions. The first one is that in 1 year's time, how would you predict the average price level of the Bitcoin? And the second, in 10 years' time, do you think which currency will become the next great global currency? Central banking digital currency of the dollar, CBDC of the euro, CBDC of the RMB, or Bitcoin? Maybe from Governor first.
So as a decision maker in interest rates, I have to make a number of forecasts. Luckily, Bitcoin is not one of them that affects my world as a decision maker. So I will not give you any forecast of what Bitcoin will be. On the question of in 10 years' time, which currency will become the next big global currency, I don't think it will be Bitcoin in terms of sizes and in terms of how well is it sort of integrated, used in the economy. And I think it remains truly a very open question whether any central bank have issued a digital version of their own currency addressed to individuals. It's a very open question, but a lot of us, including the Riksbank, are looking into it.
Professor, very quickly.
I'm glad you set the example for not answering your question. I've discovered that when I give flippant forecasts, they get quoted.
Okay, then a global currency in 10 years' time.
Okay, maybe I can guess this, because it's not as dangerous. I'll say the euro.
Euro.
Yeah.
CBDC euro.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Jennifer?
back to I don't like the point about it's about money.
It's okay, Jennifer. We still have time.
No,
next time.
I want to say this. I actually don't care about where Bitcoin's price is going to be, because the fact that Bitcoin has been survived for so long, it means it's a very powerful idea. I really don't care where it's going to be, and I think
so. You will hold.
I will
Absolutely,
hold. I will hold not really, primarily for the profit. I will hold for the idea.
I see.
Secondly,
for the belief.
For the belief. Secondly, I think, for the belief and also for the idea, that could inspire a lot of different possibilities and imaginations in our new monetary system.
And in 10 years' time?
In 10 years' time, I still think that, I don't think, crypto currency completely outside of a central bank system will really flourish in the global.
Is it Bitcoin or anyone else, anything else?
No, I think it potentially could be Chinese central bank issued national cryptocurrency that mobilized the trade on one belt, one road. That could be very powerful.
Yeah, Neil.
So none of them answered the question, but I have to answer the question.
I'm happy to that.
Great. I'll take the heat for the flippant forecast. I would say that I think.
But very briefly.
Very briefly.
Yeah.
I don't know, 25,000 a year from now. Please don't write it down. But I would also agree that as long as it's alive and higher than it is today, I think it's a success. I don't care if it's.
Sorry. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this crypto asset bubble session, which is developed in partnership with Yicai Media Group. As the price of the Bitcoin soared by 13-fold in 2017 with extreme volatility, Bitcoin emerges from the underground world of nerds and criminals to become a mainstream investment today. And from today, there are close to 1,000 different crypto assets on the market, and also the combined market value of the cryptocurrencies surged to 540 billion. And the blockchain technology that underpins it has become impossible for the big financial institutions to ignore. So are these crypto assets finally coming into their own, or are they bubbles, fraud, Ponzi scheme, index of money laundering, or is the seed of the next financial crisis, and maybe even worse? So recently, the central bank have entered the fray with several announcing that they are exploring or experimenting CBDC, which is central banking digital currency with blockchain and also other technologies. And because today technology developers and investors and regulators and central bankers see crypto assets in different ways, and few people can ever be on the same page. So I have a very big ambition today for our session that I hope we can help chart the future path for Bitcoin, crypto assets, ICO, and blockchain technology all together. And you will be a little bit skeptical for me, but I do have this big ambition because we have a big and we have very good panel today. And so let me introduce them very briefly. To my left,